Ever get the feeling like some parts of the Bible just don't get enough attention?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, they're the big ones everyone knows, right?
Mhm.
Genesis, Exodus, the Gospels. But then there are these other books that are like hidden gems, packed with insights, but kind of tucked away.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we're doing today. We're going deep on one of those hidden gems, the Book of Amos.
Amos is, well, it's a powerful book,
Yeah.
really powerful.
It's a short one, too. But man, it doesn't pull any punches when it comes to social justice, economic inequality, holding up a mirror to society's problems.
Right. It's super relevant, actually, even though it was written thousands of years ago.
So let's get right into it. Let's start with the basics. Who was this Amos guy anyway?
Okay, so Amos, he wasn't a priest or a professional prophet, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a shepherd.
A shepherd.
Yeah, and he also took care of sycamore fig trees. That was his thing,
Interesting. So like a totally ordinary guy. Yeah.
pretty much. But then, boom, he gets this call to deliver God's message to the northern kingdom of Israel.
And just to clarify for our listeners, Amos was from the southern kingdom of Judah, right?
That's right, yeah. So not only was he not a professional prophet, but he was also stepping into potentially hostile territory, crossing those political and cultural lines.
Yeah. Wow, so that really adds another layer to his story. An outsider coming in and speaking truth to power. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's got that David and Goliath feel to it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's that outsider status that gives his message a real rawness, like an urgency.
You can just imagine, right? One day you're out tending sheep, and the next you're standing up to a whole nation telling them they've lost their way.
Totally.
So speaking of losing their way, let's talk about the context here. What was going on in Israel at the time that Amos was prophesying?
Well, on the surface, things were good, actually. They were going through a time of prosperity, economic growth, relative peace and stability.
That was nice, right?
It does, but Amos saw through it, right through it.
Okay, so what was he seeing?
It was like this gilded cage, all shiny on the outside, but underneath there was all this rot, like this decay,
Oh, I see.
rampant social injustice, exploitation of the poor, and a real spiritual emptiness.
So basically they had their priorities all messed up.
Exactly. They were focused on material wealth, on the outward appearances of success, but they'd completely forgotten about justice and compassion, those core values that were supposed to be at the heart of their covenant with God.
So they were straying from their faith.
Totally. They thought they could just go through the motions, like offer up sacrifices, and everything would be fine.
But it wasn't.
No, not even close. Amos saw that their prosperity was built on the backs of the vulnerable, on, the suffering of others.
And he wasn't afraid to call him out on it.
No, not at all. And the way he did it was incredible. Like he used this super vivid language, these hard-hitting images that would have really shocked his audience.
Oh, yeah. Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, so when he's talking about the wealthy elite, he compares the women of Samaria to fattened cows, like just lounging in luxury, completely oblivious to the suffering around them.
Ouch, I bet that didn't go over well.
No, and it gets even more intense. He talks about them trampling on the heads of the needy and crushing the afflicted.
Wow. I mean, you can feel the anger in those words, right?
Mhm.
The righteous indignation.
Totally. He was like a verbal sledgehammer, just shattering their complacency, forcing them to confront the ugliness of their actions.
Right. So you said there were three main sins that Amos condemned. We've talked about the oppression of the poor. What were the other two?
So besides the oppression of the poor, he also went after idolatry.
Idolatry. Okay, so worshiping other gods, right?
Right. But it wasn't just about the rituals themselves. It was about what those rituals represented, like a misplacement of their values.
Ah, I see.
They were putting their faith in material wealth and, these empty rituals, thinking that was enough to please God.
But it wasn't about the outward show.
Nope. It was about living a life of justice and compassion, right? That's what their covenant with God demanded, not just empty gestures.
Which brings us to the third sin, complacency.
Right, that attitude of everything's fine, we're good, don't rock the boat.
Yeah, that's a dangerous one. Turning a blind eye to injustice because it's, easier or more convenient to just look the other way.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
And isn't that something that's still relevant today? I mean, think about how often we ignore the suffering around us or how we justify our own complicity in systems that perpetuate injustice.
Yeah, like turning a blind eye to climate change, accepting income inequality. It's easy to become numb to it all.
So what was Amos's solution? What did he say needed to happen?
He was pretty clear about that. He delivered this really stark message of impending judgment.
Judgment.
Yeah, like he was saying, look, you guys are way off track here, and there are going to be consequences if you don't change your ways.
So there was no sugarcoating it.
Nope. He used these powerful metaphors, like he compares God to a roaring lion, about to unleash his wrath.
Wow, a roaring lion. Okay, so that's a pretty intense image. But there's got to be more to it, right? It can't all be doom and gloom.
You're right, it's not. Even in the midst of all that talk of judgment, Amos offers a glimmer of hope.
Okay, good. I was hoping there'd be some hope.
He emphasizes that if the people repent, turn back to God, truly seek justice and righteousness, they can find forgiveness.
So it's not too late.
No, there's always a chance for redemption, for renewal, and that's a message that's so important for us to hear, even today.
So what are we supposed to take away from all of this? I mean, it's a powerful story, a powerful message, but how do we apply it to our own lives?
I think the key takeaway is that we can't just sit back and be complacent. We have to actively work towards justice, towards compassion, towards building a world that reflects God's values.
Yeah, it's not enough to just go through the motions. We have to actually live our faith. Right. And that means speaking out against injustice, standing up for the marginalized, and holding ourselves accountable for the ways in which we contribute to the problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have to constantly be examining our own lives, our own actions, and asking ourselves, are we living up to those standards of justice and compassion that Amos talked about?
And I think that's a perfect place to leave our listeners today, with that question ringing in their ears.
Yeah, because ultimately that's what Amos is all about. It's a challenge to examine ourselves, to change our ways, and to build a better world.
And who knows, maybe, just maybe, if we listen to his message, we can avoid that roaring lion.
That's a good goal to have.
Okay, well, that wraps up our deep dive into the book of Amos.
Thanks for having me. I always enjoy these conversations.
And thanks to all of you for listening. See you next time.
See you then.